great story coming out of Camden, and we believe it's going to revitalize that whole section of Camden. And we're just excited about what God is doing there with the Martin Luther King House. So like you heard earlier in the narrative, it's where Dr. King stayed from 1948 to 51 while he was at Crozer Theological Seminary. After he graduated from Morehouse College in Atlanta, he came there because his best friend lived at this house. They went to Morehouse together. They came over there. Crozer Theological Seminary at the time, primarily white. So he felt more comfortable coming to Camden and, being there in the streets of Camden and just driving back and forth to college on weekends and summers. But the interesting thing is not so much that he just stayed there on weekends and summers, it's the activity that took place there on the date that they mentioned, June 11th, 1950, where he and his best friend, Walter McCall, along with two young ladies, this was before he got married and started dating Coretta, they just went out one town. They wanted to go to this Mary's Cafe just to get something to eat. He was warned on those steps right here by his uncle. He said, "Don't you dare go down to Mary's Cafe. They don't allow, blacks, colored, and Negroes, whatever they wanted to say back then, at Mary's Cafe." And Martin said something very interesting. He said, if they say we're not allowed down there, that's the very reason why we should go there, so that we can go anywhere. And it was interesting because when they went there, imagine Martin, his best friend Walter, this was on a Sunday too after church, two young ladies, and they're sitting there at the cafe waiting for somebody to come over there, wait on them. They wouldn't come and wait on them, and eventually they went to the manager, which they found later was the owner, and they said, "Listen, we want to get something to eat and drink here." And the guy says, "We don't serve so-and-so here." And he used some really derogatory, words. You can imagine what they were. But Martin kept his cool. He said, "We're not leaving until we get something. Just give us a ginger ale, we'll order something." He said, "No." He reached behind the counter and he pulled out a gun. He put it in Martin's face, he put it in Walter's face. Then he went outside, shot the gun at the door up in the air a few times and said, "I've killed for less." And thank God there were some young college kids over there at the time that were willing to testify. So Martin, along with his best friend Walter and the two young ladies, they left when the gun was pulled out, of course. And then they went back and they got the NAACP attorney, along with some others, the NAACP head at the time as well, Dr. Wiggins, and they filed charges against the restaurant owner, Mary's Cafe. You can imagine two young black individuals filing suit against a white owner of a restaurant that was well known in the community in 1950, and they prevailed. And I don't know, we don't know to this day if they knew it was a newly enacted law, whether he was testing the law or it was just a coincidence. We don't know that, but we do know that there was a newly enacted New Jersey state law that spread across the country, the first time ever used in the entire country, and definitely obviously the first time used here in New Jersey. It was used then in 1950. That newly enacted law, I think, was just finally enacted in 1949, the year before. And they used it, and now they won. And it wasn't until just recently, in the past 5, 6, 7 years, that they were able to come across the actual transcripts that showed the Martin signature on there, where they pressed charges, how they won in court, so forth and so on. So the big significance of the house is this is where the civil rights, the civil rights movement actually began. Most of us look at 1955, Rosa Parks boycotting the bus as the first actual protest. But the very first time this law was used, and what Martin used, was right here. So we're believing that this is actually going to rewrite a lot of our history. As a matter of fact, we met with the King family 2 years ago and put a film crew. We started recording a lot of them, showed them the documents, and they were so excited. So they're behind us. We thank God for the state of New Jersey and the DEP and the Historical Preservation Office. They just recently gave us an additional grant to not just study in detail this house, but also 9 other great historical events that took place in Camden. Hey Keith, you're back there. Just